through loud and clear. Oh, that's terrifying. Yeah, just to start off by saying a massive thank you for having me along. I will start the talk by saying I think it's a slight departure for these talks because I'm not an academic, I'm not a scientist. I work in the charity sector and have done for the last 5 or 6 years. So it's a really nice opportunity to be able to talk about these projects that happen that are all about connecting people with nature and improving habitats in this sort of setting. So thanks very much for having me along, and please be gentle with me. So yes, I'm here to talk about Beelines North East. I hope some of you have heard about it before, but if you haven't, we are all about bringing the buzz back to the city. I'm sorry, that is the first and only pun of the talk. So Beelines North East is about bringing the buzz back to the city. So it's all about improving our parks and green spaces for pollinators and helping people to connect with nature that they can find on their doorstep. So it's kind of two main parts to it. It's a partnership project, and I've been really pleased and lucky to work for Evergreen Newcastle for the last couple of years. So as a charity, we manage the parks and green spaces in Newcastle City. On this project, we partnered with the Northumberland Wildlife Trust, who I think most of you will know, so I won't go into too much detail about what they do, because I'm sure you know all about their work. But it's been a great opportunity to partner with the Wildlife Trust, focusing on wildlife in the city and urban spaces in Newcastle and South East Northumberland. This project's been funded by DEFRA through the Green Recovery Challenge Fund, and we've been really fortunate to be able to run an 18-month project with the funding they've supplied. So what's it all about? My world as a project manager, it's all about what are the project aims, outcomes, outputs, and I want to try and put that across to you really simply because it's quite a broad-ranging project, and I want to kind of boil it down to really its essence. So I've come up with 3, I guess, main points we're doing. So one of the main things is nature restoration. So it's all about improving the parks physically for pollinators and trying to improve nature that we find in the city. So our aims were to plant 25,000 native bulbs, which help provide an early source of forage for pollinators. Plant 2,500 trees, which again provide a really fantastic kind of resource for pollinators. Create or restore 18 hectares of nectar-rich grassland, which I think is really important in urban areas that we can find this kind of nectar-rich habitat. Create 6 ponds and 750 square metres of pollinator-friendly border. So we're talking about kind of our flower beds that we see in the city and our parks. They can also provide a really important resource for nature. Our second aim, which is just as important in my opinion in terms of conservation, was about engaging people. So our aim was to connect with over 3,500 people over the 18-month project. So we really got going in February last year, and since then we've been trying to engage people in schools, so engaging young people through the primary schools, engaging people in our parks through activity days, and engaging people through health and well-being sessions, working kind of on our sites that are close to the hospitals in the city. And really importantly, I think, one of our third, I guess, key aim is about improving things for the local economy as well. So I think that conservation has a big part to play in providing resources for the local economy. I think the green environment sector and green jobs are a growing part of our economy. So this project was all about kind of providing for that. So it was really fortunate. It created 5 new staff posts, helped fund existing staff posts in the environment sector in Newcastle and South East Northumberland, and also helped us deliver a paid training programme for training as well. So that's what the project's all about. How did we get on? So we approached it in a few different ways. So I want to talk a little bit about each of them as we go. So part of the project is about increasing knowledge. I don't know if some of you recognise the familiar face on the screen there, so you might. But we did that. We wanted to increase our knowledge of our sites. So we wanted to increase what do we know about our parks and our green spaces in the city. How good are they for nature at the minute? And do they need improving? And we wanted to increase people's knowledge of nature, because we know that when you increase someone's knowledge of the natural world around them, they're far more likely to care about it. So to increase our knowledge of the sites, we worked with Northumberland Wildlife Trust, and they helped us by doing a phase 1 habitat survey of all our parks. For those of you who don't know, a phase 1 habitat survey is a bit like a habitat appraisal. What have you got on your site? What is it good for nature? Is it in good condition? So they went out and they surveyed 45 sites, which was no mean feat to do in 3 months, so they did a really fantastic job, and helped us decide what we were going to do on those sites. We worked with Northumbria University, and we have a really good partnership with Northumbria University and Catherine Baldock's and Mark Goddard's team at the University of Northumbria. And we were really lucky to have a bit of funding to have a field researcher who went out onto four of our key sites, and did pollinator interaction surveys and plant surveys on those sites to really get into depth about what was going on the ground for pollinators in those parks. Also, it means that we've got some baseline data that over the years we can replicate those studies and see, are the things that we're doing on those sites actually improving things for nature. And really importantly, we worked with Northumbrian Natural History Society and the Northumbrian Wildlife Trust to engage over 800 people with citizen science. So that's getting children, young people, anyone really who wants to get involved out there doing some surveys, whether it was kind of doing a bioblitz where you try and find all the biodiversity on site, or doing a fit count with young people in the park to count pollinators, and just improving everyone's knowledge of nature, really. We were all about improving biodiversity with this project, so how do we get on with those quite ambitious targets that were set? That's why I've got a few more grey hairs these days. So we created, if you remember from the first slide, we said we'd improve 18 hectares of grassland. We actually went on to create and improve over 30 hectares of grassland for pollinators. Now, I'm not going to talk about grass cutting for very long, because although I find it very interesting, most people switch off to it. But we did it in a few different ways. We reduced the amount that we mow in our parks. So usually amenity grassland you mow between 8 and 10 times a year. So that's reducing the amount of times the mowers actually hit the grass, allows the flowering plants to flower, creating pollinator resource. We did traditional hay management on some of our sites. As most of you will probably know, is letting the grass grow long all summer, and then cutting and raking off the arisings. And we actually oversowed quite a lot of wildflower seed on those sites. So we've gone through, I think, nearly 90 kilos of wildflower seed, which were supplied from a supplier from Northumberland. So it's one of my kind of big achievements. I think it was 90 kilos of wildflower seed. It's quite a lot. And then we also worked with the council to use some more innovative techniques about increasing pollinators in grasslands, using kind of machines that actually collect the grass as they cut it. So you use a machine, it goes along, mows the ground, it collects the grass rather than letting it drop on the floor. And that reduces the amount of nutrients that are in the soil, which allows flowers and more wildflowers to grow. So we've tried lots of different ways of improving our grasslands. We planted nearly 27,000 bulbs, which are all native bulbs. They're from a supplier in Cumbria. So wood anemone, wild daffodil, bluebell, snowdrop, everything that we can to try and get that early nectar resource for bees and other pollinating insects. And we are in the midst of planting our nearly over 3,500 trees. And we've worked with the RHS and Northumbria University to look at how we can actually create formal planting schemes that are good for pollinators, but are also manageable in the public space. Managing a public park is unfortunately not like managing a garden. You can't spend quite as much time as you'd like on every single flower bed. So we need to find imaginative ways where we can create these beautiful planting schemes, but that are actually manageable when you're only being able to go and look after them maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So that's improving biodiversity. And I'm hoping there's a video here that's going to play, but if it doesn't, I'm going to apologise for that particularly terrible glitchy video. I'm afraid it doesn't always work out, the technology. But what I wanted to give you a sense of is the engagement activities we did. So I said that we wanted to improve our parks for pollinators, and we definitely have done that. But I think the real success of this project has been engaging the people of Newcastle with the importance that pollinators and nature has for them. So far across the project, we've engaged over 7,000 people with nature, and that's kind of really, really successful. I'm gobsmacked when I see the figures. I think I'm not going to take credit for that, because that's definitely down to our fantastic education officer, Rachel. We were really fortunate in this project that we were able to, it enabled us to hire and employ a full-time education officer to do this work. And I think the value that is shown from having that sort of resource is pretty clear to see. So she's done some brilliant work engaging community groups, engaging with schools, to really bring people out into the parks, out into nature. So yes, so we have been really successful. So over 7,000 people, over 100 nature-based events and activities. So that's included a formal education program, which involves getting children out from schools, out of the classroom, into the park, learning about nature. It's 3 nature-based activity days that we've run in parks across the city, particularly focusing on areas in the city that have higher indices of multiple deprivation. So those areas that are more deprived in the city, we've really focused our energy and attention, because what generally across the UK we seem to find is that people who live in more deprived areas tend to have much less of a connection to nature. So we've tried to focus our efforts in those areas to try and address that inequality. And also, as well as engaging people through activities and events and learning, it's also giving people a chance to learn new skills as well. So we've provided those paid training opportunities for young people, giving them an opportunity to get into the environment sector, which, to be honest, isn't an easy place to find employment at all. There's lots of inequalities in terms of having to do unpaid placements when you're trying to get into the sector, and having to fund your own learning. So being able to pay people to learn new skills has been a really asset to this project, I think, definitely. And we've had some great university students who have helped us out as well, and finding those partnerships in university has been brilliant. And looking to the future, the Beelines North East programme has been brilliant, but I think it's just been kind of a drop in the ocean about what are the opportunities for nature in the city. So I think this project in particular, although it's been really short, it's been, in my opinion, really, really good for a few different reasons. Providing opportunities of partnership. So we've been really fortunate to work with NHSN, with Northumberland Wildlife Trust and communities across the city, and forming new relationships all the time, which forms new opportunities. I think it's shown that there is a need out there for these sorts of activities to be taken to people. If we rely on people coming out into the countryside as their way of connecting with nature, then unfortunately we're going to miss out. People are going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So I think it's our responsibility as nature conservationists to take the nature to them, to where they live and work. And from our point of view as a parks management organisation, it's given us an opportunity to reflect on how we manage our green spaces and try to manage them a bit better for nature as well as people. I think that's just about my time. I will finish with a final plug. It's not over, so if you do want to join in and take part in our next big event, will be BuzzFest, which will be a bit of a celebration as well of all the work we've done. That will be in Exhibition Park on Saturday the 25th, so that's the last weekend in half term. So please do come along. There will be face painting, lots of activities. I believe the Natural Society are coming along to join us for that day, as are Northumberland Wildlife Trust. Be a bit of music as well, so please do feel free to come along. Thanks very much. I don't know if there's any time for questions, but I'm happy to answer them here, or I'll be around afterwards.